I love the
and
heat
it's
seater.
so good.
Some of the fancy cars now, they have heat seater and then they have heat coolers for the summer.
Great.
Like you can have both.
Have
That's
all the
insane.
good things. Yeah, right. That is insane.
I don't
Okay, great. Hey, everyone, welcome. I am glad to be here with all of you. Can everybody in the back hear me okay? Yes. Okay, thank you for that confirmation. As we are coming to, believe it or not, the close of the semester, I do have a few announcements for you, just getting things in line. First of all, if you're behind on journals, making sure that you're respecting the time of your TA because they are also students. And so getting those back journals in as soon as possible so that they have time to grade those, right? So you shouldn't have any more than 2 weeks behind. So making sure that we're respecting the TA's time and getting all the work in on time as planned. So that brings me to final extra credit movie option available to you on Monday, December 8th. This one was added to the list to make up for a confusing one that happened earlier in the semester. So the movie Flow will be shown on Monday, December 8th. You can go and attend for half a point of extra credit, and then you can write the summary in the back of your journal for the extra half point and then hand that in to your TA as soon as you have it completed. So that's there as extra credit. Canvas discussion makeup time. Here it says they open tomorrow at 8 a.m. I actually opened them before I came to class. So you'll find that all of the discussion posts are reopened now, and you'll have until Friday, December 12th at 5 to complete any that you have not done. This is a grace period. This is because life happens sometimes and we can't control things. So if you need to make up some discussion posts, this is your opportunity. They are open and ready for you. If you're finding challenges with that, please let me know. It's possible that I screwed it up today. So please forgive me if I did. Please let me know if you find mistakes. I appreciate that. It's not an easy system to navigate, unfortunately. So that's available for you. The Seeks are open. I love the Seeks. So make sure that you're giving me some feedback in this system. We will have a bonus point Canvas discussion question next week that is also about feedback. That's how much I love feedback and take feedback seriously. So please give me feedback via the Seeks, and then my department sees those, my boss at Shavers Creek sees those. So I'm getting your feedback, and then I get their feedback on your feedback, and it's all really great. I'm really appreciative of how that can help me be better at what I'm doing, how the TAs can be better at what they're doing, how we can just create a community system that works for BiSci 3. So Seeks, please fill them in. I'm grateful for your attention to this. You'll have the opportunity to do one for your lab and one for this class, the whole class as a whole. So if you choose to do both, that's great. Then your TA gets that feedback. If you just choose to do the BiSci 3 one or just the TA one, that's fine too. So I look at all of them. Your Eco ID projects, ecological identity projects, are going to be due next week in your lab. And so I'd like to show you this one, if Abby could hit play. Thank you. This is one from a few years back, but I think that it's pretty cool. So as an example.
Allow this, purchase those, consume that, invest in these. It is no wonder that we cannot ponder and let the mind wander the weight of our actions, because you see, our actions are not our own, they're not homegrown, and we are all just part of society's drone. And it's not until you realize that the story is something that we can revise. Sister and brother all come from Earth Mother to unite with one another. Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, the way that we preach is how society will teach. And is it really a reach that they are all the same, born of the same flame, all united by one aim? Preach salvation to ensure there's no deviation from the mold of creation as society's citation. Science is what we know. It's how we learn to grow, but we will never learn to glow. If noise is what is distressing, then it is quite depressing because we can cheer for the football game, but to preach sustainability is lame. Humans are for respecting all other beings are below. This is society's echo when we tear through the earth looking for coal. I live with Earth. I don't simple-mindedly see what she can be worth as reducing her girth. To diminish the gifts left to us by years of shifts and ocean waves protected by the graves, the Earth cannot always forgive. This is no way to live because at some point she will have no more to give. Drink your milk so you can grow, get your calcium so you have strong bones, curl your hair, paint your nails, make the boys stare, compete with other females. But what can I drink for my soul? What nutrient will help my spirit grow? What beauty product do I use to make my inner beauty glow? When you told me I can't live my dream job because I came out a girl, you put my life into a whirl. 2017, the year of progression, but what about all the inequality still unseen? We still have suppression. Black Lives Matter, but so do blue. You can be a CEO, but not if by you mean a girl. Before I even exited the womb, society planned my life from birth to the tomb. Society decided I was going to perform ballet. My voice I would have to downplay, and I would marry a rich man and work at home someday. Is this my ecological identity? Is this the earth left for me? Is this going to be my legacy? As long as you don't let yourself slide and become blind to the truth, allowing others to tell to you how you should do you and give you fake news because it's better to all share the same views. This way, no one can refuse the societal cues to accuse brother and sister for crimes and twos because they don't have the color skin that society can excuse. Society tells me to sit down, to always hide my frown, and to keep my feelings bound. Well, then, I have a message for society too, because it's not until you realize, the story is something that you can revise. Society cannot control me. I am a being, I am free, and I identify as me. Hide my pain, keep my opinions in vain, stay in society's lane. You're pretty, you're slender, you're tall, you're attractive. This is what society named me. Appearances is all that matters, it appears to be. But I cannot be claimed, and I will go to the grave before I'm shamed for not being what society named me. I could not be perfect, and I'll never be the same, and I'll never fit into society's main frame. I identify as a storm, I identify as outside the norm, and I will not conform. I am the wind in the trees, I am an ocean's breeze, I am the lake in winter you see freeze. I am no one's pawn, my presence cannot be withdrawn. I can say that I am me with pride because I can put society aside, allow my soul to be my guide. I am the stars in the night sky. I am the sun you kiss goodbye. I am a mountain standing high. I'm energetic. I'm blunt. I'm curious. I'm empathetic. I am more than what appears to be, and my soul is deeper than the sea. It is not until you realize the story is something that you can revise. I am a being, I am free, and I identify as me. Who are you?
So there are lots of different ways to do the project, lots of different ways, so that it becomes fully something that represents you. So I get really excited about seeing your ecological identity projects. I get to see them through your TAs, that they send them along if you so choose. And so I look forward to this very much. So how many uses can you think of for a paperclip? I'd like you to take 1 minute to do this on your journal for today, page 137. Okay, I'll give you a second to get started and find my timer. All right. We're getting ready. How many uses can you think of for a paperclip? On your mark, get set, go. All right, 30 more seconds. Fifteen seconds. And stop. All right. How many do we have? How many people have 5 uses for a paper clip other than clipping paper together? 5. All right, 10. How many people have 10? Okay, 10. Anybody have 15? All right. What are some of the ones that you have? What can you use a paper clip for? Yeah. You can just yell it out. Blow bubbles. Excellent. I love that. What else? Yeah. Yep, to pick a lock. Okay. What else? Just yell out. To clip papers. Other ideas? Hair clip. What was that one? Bookmark. A stitch marker for crochet. Me too. And what was yours? A necklace. Yes. Clip them together. Excellent. So sometimes this has been used as a test of creativity, of being able to think outside the box. It's not particularly accurate because our brains work in different kinds of ways around the circumstance that we have. So you can also think of toothpick, although that's not very safe for your teeth, letter opener, belt buckle, keyboard cleaner to fix your eyeglasses, substitute game pieces. You can bend them into different shapes according to the players, an antenna, a blow dart needle, a money clip, a twist tie, a phone stand, a fish hook, finger splint, key ring, etc., etc. So when we start to think outside what's possible other than clipping papers, there can be lots of possibilities. But how do we use those ideas when we need them is the key. So when you run into a challenging solution or a challenging problem, right? A challenge, I should say, then is it, that you try to think outside the box to figure out a new solution, or do you just go buy a new thing, or do you call your mom, or how is it that your problem solving is really interesting, and it ties into the hero's journey that you'll be talking about in lab tomorrow. So when we think about the path less traveled, the ways that we can move through the world in different ways than we have before, expanding and exploring and exploding the possibilities out there, then that's where creativity comes in. So we're going to back up for just a minute to Autumn's class on Tuesday, where she was talking about technologies. And there was a debate a little bit about, is the wheel technology? Is a lever technology? And when we look at the root word of technology, it's techne, T-E-C-H-N-E, and it's a Greek word that means art, skill, or craft. Techne, art, skill, or craft. So when we think outside of what we think of nowadays as technology and back to what's possible, she mentioned that, language is a technology. The wheel is technology. Art, drawing, the pigments used in those 30,000-year-old art pieces, that's technology. Of course, fire. And then when we move forward, we have tools, we have games, we have sport, right? And then things that we're more familiar with as thinking about technology, light bulbs and mobile phones and, going to the moon, all of those possibilities, all the things for technology. So therefore, the word technology, literally, the ology means study or knowledge. And so therefore, technology means the study or skill of art and craft. So it's been defining humans. Practicing art and skill and craft has been defining humans since the beginning of humans. It is a very old way of being when we really dig into it. So look around this room right now, whether you're looking high, whether you're looking low, the chairs that you're sitting in, the clothes that you're wearing, the shoes on your feet, the lights in the ceiling, all of this is technology. It's all coming together. Everything had to begin as an idea. Somebody that said, well, we need to have the speakers spread out like this so everyone in the room can hear. We need to have the lighting in the ceiling so that it's most efficient and not blocking the view of what you're trying to see on the stage. The chairs have to be somewhat comfortable. We have to have desks attached for students. So all of those things came through this idea of, the idea first, and then designing something to try it out, and then trying it and discovering, well, that didn't work. And then going back to the beginning, right? 10,000 iterations of the light bulb before what we have today. And even then, those technologies continue to advance before things get put into production, right? So there can be a real awe around this, especially then when we think back to the question that Autumn asked the other day, do you think of smartphones as natural? And Daniel mentioned, yeah, everything in our smartphone came from nature. Everything in this room came from nature. Nature, earth, whatever you want to call it, all of these resources have come from there. So all of the technology, all of the resources put together bring us to where we are today. And what that is creativity is at the base of all of that. So when you hear the word creativity, what do you think of? I'd like you to write down 3 in your journal. What does the word creativity or that concept spark for you? Do a moment of self-reflection, and then when you're finished, you can talk to your neighbor. All right. So what comes up for you when you think about creativity? I would love to hear from a few folks. Right up here, if you will, please.
All right, so mine are a bit strange. So I'm gonna explain to them. I'm gonna explain them. So the first one I wrote unfiltered energy, and that's sort of that what exists in your brain. That's like the purity of it. Like that's pure creativity. It's unfiltered. The second one I wrote is fire, and that's the engine, the ambition. That's what sort of keeps you going. Like I remember I spoke the other day about like what gets me up. It's like, oh, it's that fire. That's the second part. And then the third part is the bones, which is the foundation. That is, for me, it's Clarence. Like that's who I turn to. That's my bones. But yeah, it's like that 3 parts, the trifecta.
Cool. Thank you for telling us about that. Yeah. Nice. Somebody back in the back there too, Anjali.
So I said, for my first one, I said human. I think the creative is a very kind of exclusive, like it's cool that humans can do it. Like it's our ability to create, I think is very special. I said intuition because I feel like that's kind of the driving factor for a lot of your creativity. And then I also said emotion because I feel like that's kind of the place where you want, like the desire to create comes from. It comes from some kind of emotion, and that kind of drives you to create.
Oh, I love this. I love this topic. This makes me so excited. Thank you for offering those. Anyone else like to speak? So we're going to be building on some of those things that those two said. And then if anybody feels inspired to co-create this with me as we go, if you have something else you want to offer, please just get my attention and we can be in co-creation around this topic, which I think is so exciting. So sometimes people think of creativity just as a playfulness, right? As an escape from everyday duty and responsibility. Sometimes it just comes through stroke of genius. That's what people think about creativity. Something that other folks think is that it's reserved for just those free-spirited people, right? Except that the definition, let's go back to this, we're going to do this a few times today. The definition, the root word of creative, it's a Latin verb, creare, meaning to make or to bring into being. It's actually something that is so deeply central to who you are and how you interact with life. It's absolutely everything. It is so deeply human. So Rick Rubin, the author of The Creative Act, it says creativity doesn't come from our ideas. Everything we do has all of ourselves wrapped into it. So humans have always been driven to create, whether it's through art or song or storytelling or invention. It isn't a stretch to say that our civilization is the way it is, this room the way it is, because of creativity, right? So all of that is possible. Creativity is needed for developing practically any part of our society, the way businesses are structured, the way family life goes. Like there's creativity to that. And sometimes creativity is hidden in words like innovation or progressive thinking or problem solving. And yet it comes from so many different sources, including socializing, being together and creating things, problem solving and play. We're creative anytime the rules or structure aren't sufficient to create a desirable outcome. So it comes with our intentions. It comes as inspiration because we're alive. And so that means that all of us are creative. All of us, whether you have that belief, we're going to dive into your own beliefs about your creativity in just a moment. So if we are all creatives, right? Thinking back to like the very first class, we are also all scientists. Thinking back, way back to that scientific method that feels like a long time ago, 14 weeks ago. The root word of science is to know something. And so figuring it out is this. And I hope that over the course of the semester, you've learned that the scientific method just isn't like linear like this. It doesn't go like this. It actually goes more like this. So we're doing this all the time with our observations and our questions and our hypothesis, experimenting, analyzing, concluding, and then you make another observation and you build on it from there. So the scientific method is actually playing into all of these parts of us that are essential to being human. So the observation ties back into the slow down class that we talked about. The idea of making observations takes time and energy, and it's when we can really invest in that observation. The question is then the curiosity that we've been working on all semester. The hypothesis is using our imaginations to figure out, which is also a very deeply human thing. And then the experimentation is where the creativity and the technology tie in. So I really appreciate this statement from a scientist. Her name is Monica Gagliano. She says, whether scientists are aware or not, imagination is an essential agreement. You cannot explore something that doesn't exist yet or that you don't know about yet unless you can imagine it possible. What I did with my work is just making that link a little bit more explicit. So she's a scientist who talks directly about imagination and creativity, which is pretty unusual. She said, instead of pretending that I'm not using my imagination, I actually embraced it. When science becomes unimaginative, it's not science anymore. Science is an art form, and like every other art form, it demands imagination and creativity be applied. If it's not there, then we're not really exploring anything. We're not looking for learning or even wisdom. We're just repeating what we already have, which doesn't do anything. So adding in these very important parts to our scientific method, acknowledging that they're deeply rooted in all of our ways of being, is really freeing and really exciting. So what about yours, right? What's a belief you have about your creativity? How do you feel about that belief? Where did it come from? And if you want to, you can change it. And if so, how? So that's a series of four pretty big questions. But I'd like you to take a moment and really dive into that inside of you. What is the story that you carry about your creativity? So if it's helpful, you can talk to your neighbor. If you'd like to continue to be quiet, then your neighbor will respect that too. Is there anyone who would like to speak, tell a story about this?
Okay. Okay. So I do a lot of art and I feel like creativity is like something that's like always been a really big part of my life. But I think that one belief that I have that I'm trying to like overcome is that my creativity has to also be perfection.
Oh,
And I think that that as like an artist has been something that's really like made me struggle to actually create and be creative because it's like you get stuck in that trap. So I guess how I feel about that is like that's something I want to change because I think that like creativity can be flowing and doesn't have to be perfect. And ways that I'm practicing that right now is like I don't know, I'm a potter, so like I'm one who like I just smash my pots because it's really easy to do when I don't like them, but I've been trying to be more like patient with myself and just like get that final result even if I'm not fully satisfied with it. And then like I'm realizing that like looking back on it months later, I'm a lot more proud of things than I am in the moment, and that's really been helping me.
thank you for sharing that story. And I feel that very deeply, the need to be perfect or to strive toward perfection. And then understanding that it's fake, right? It's perfection is not really a thing. That there are things that might be better than other things, but is anything ever really perfect? Is a really beautiful and challenging question, I think, to address. So thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else like to tell a story of their creativity?
I feel that I used to be really creative and now I've kind of lost that part of myself because I would always do art and painting and dancing when I was younger. And now I just kind of stick to like one way of thinking or problem solving things in
Mm.
my life. And I feel like I want to do more art and I'm trying to dance more and think, or even just color. I feel like that kind of opens this new part of my brain that I don't usually discover as much anymore.
It absolutely does. Yes. And the where we are in science these days, we can watch it happen, right? Scientists are watching creative actions happening in our brain, whether we're taking in, like watching or looking at, observing, appreciating somebody else's art, or whether we are doing our own art. It's this they can watch it, right? MRIs and the parts of our brain that light up during those activities. And it's showing that we are using, the other day we watched during the boredom video, she referred to the default network, right? The default mode network where our brains have to be bored. They have to go into this reflective place. They have to have opportunity to do that to stay healthy. And so doing art and watching art, looking at art, taking it in it's triggering that default mode network, which is very internal, except it's also triggering these other parts of our brain that are emotional and outward facing and appreciating other people. So there's all kinds of cool things that get triggered in our brains when we stretch and do those things. It's really healthy for us to use our brains in these different ways. And so, yes, I encourage you, color, dance, all those things. It's challenging because it doesn't seem like it's valuable sometimes. Our time gets used up in other ways, and that's very challenging. So creativity increases with awareness and practice, just like the things we've talked about, sport and art and music, mindfulness, slowing down, changing routines and habits. All of those things take practice. And creativity is one of those things that can get better with time. And in fact, there are folks that refer to it as the creativity mindset. The idea, it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. So to draw or paint or shoot a movie or make music actually doesn't imply any creativity at all. Those are actions, but whether you're actually applying creativity to them is up to you. So it's the idea, the mindset, idea, and attitudes with which a person approaches a situation. So understanding that creativity is the ability to generate or recognize ideas or alternatives or possibilities. And so first, believing that you are creative, right? Up here, believing in your own creativity. The idea that we are human, and by virtue of being human, you are creative. That's just inside of us. Embracing curiosity, asking questions. Is there a different way to do this? Right? We've been practicing that through the semester. How can we open our eyes to other possibilities? Suspending judgment. This is one of quieting your inner critic. That's where the perfection comes in. Whereas kids, you created art, very likely of all different kinds of things, and it was just you. It was you doing something and just doing it for the fun of it. So suspending judgment that, you aren't going to be perfect at it. The outcome it's going to be just yours. And that's pretty cool. Tolerating ambiguity, making sure that we understand that there are ways of others' viewpoints, right? That add in they say, well, that's not perfect. You get a C on that. And then but what is that to them related to what it is to you? And so understanding that there are lots of ways to approach this. Imagines with childlike wonder, and when children play, they often do so in very original ways. With the responsibilities of adulthood, this playful curiosity tends to go away. I just read a very interesting article about 6-7 and how that is showing this creativity in the children of today, right? That has taken on and even not just children now, right? You all are acknowledging that this is a thing. So the fact that my kid thinks it's really funny when I'm like, well, 6, 7, it's a way that he and I are playing, and that it's been added to Webster's dictionary, right? This is a big statement about childhood creativity, that it still is alive in where kids are, even with all the challenges of the day. And then persisting, changing the impossible to the possible, the idea of being able to stick to it. These are all creativity mindsets. So understanding that creativity is everywhere, right? How you make a sandwich. Your sandwich is going to be different than my sandwich, right? It's going to be different because I want to put different stuff on it, because that's what appeals to me. It's just how you approach your life, how you navigate around a construction area. That's creativity. It's embracing opportunity as it comes to you. The idea that we are going to honor and value our creativity is going to move you into a place of life that feels more purposeful, more truthful, and more free. And that's pretty exciting, all of those things. The reason that humans are creative, right, continue to have this trait of curiosity is because the aha moments, when we have an aha moment where we've learned something, where we've done something different, where we've had a new experience, those aha moments in our brains are triggering the same reward centers as delicious food, addictive substances, and sexual pleasure. It's the same parts of our brain that light up in the creativity zone. So while this discovery doesn't clear up the entire mystery, it does help to understand the evolutionary insight of why we are continuing to be creative. So these aha moments, think about an aha moment. Maybe it was finishing a puzzle of some kind. Maybe it was solving a confusing math problem. Maybe it was writing a few lines of poetry. Maybe it was throwing a pot that you were excited about. Maybe it's figuring out a way to save some money. Maybe it's choosing an alternative product for reasons that make sense to you. Maybe it's creating a new riff on your guitar. Maybe it's writing something in your journal that you know that you didn't know, or that you didn't know that you know. That aha moment when you're writing something down. Our brains reward us for thinking outside the box. Those are new networks forming in our brains, which is pretty cool. This is a plaque that my dad gave to my son. Don't try to fit in when you were born to stand out. We are all unique in the wiring that's going on in our brains, the ways that we express our creativity. And how does this affect then where we work and how we work? So there's the brilliant example of Pixar, right? Steve Jobs redesigned Pixar Studios. Of course, we know how successful Pixar has been, to maximize collaboration and creativity. The original design for the Pixar Studios consisted of 3 separate buildings where they'd put computer scientists in one building and animators in the second building, and the third building would contain everybody else, the directors, the editors. And so Steve Jobs realized this was a terrible idea, and that the real challenge was to get all of those people intermingling and sharing their ideas, sharing the possibility, co-creating things together to really collaborate. And so he insisted that Pixar Studios be just one vast cavernous space. And then he did this. He forced people to mingle. There are only 2 bathrooms in the Pixar Studios, and that these would be in the central space. And of course, this is super inconvenient. No one wants to have to walk 15 minutes to go to the bathroom. And yet, Steve Jobs insisted this is the one place that everyone has to go every day. And so now, if you've heard of people at Pixar, they often have a bathroom story. They talk about the great conversation that they had in the hall with the person on the way to the bathroom, right? They had to mix and mingle And so that human friction makes sparks. And when you're talking about that human creativity from different cultures, different places, you force them to mix, because our natural tendency sometimes is to stay isolated and to talk to people who are more like us and who speak our language the best and who understand our problems. And yet that's not how we expand, right? So talking to people in your lab groups might not be a group of people that you would have naturally gravitated toward to spend time with. And yet now, potentially, your lab group is a place where you have friends and people that you know. So I've also talked to some people recently that they struggle to speak up, even when they're sharing something they're confident about in conversation, or even when they're pretty good at throwing pots or creating something or directing something or being part of the community, but they still fear, there's a fear someplace inside. What's causing that hesitation for folks to show up as they really are, to create your own life? So maybe it is fear. Maybe there's something, that you're holding back because of some reason, right? Maybe it's that it's hard to be ourselves. Maybe it's that we have fear of being judged or disliked or misunderstood, and that stops our creative flow. Alternatively, when we feel safe, our creativity unfolds with little effort. There's that Maslow's hierarchy of needs when this comes to that. So safety is important. Some of you have spoken about this before. There's sometimes distraction from doing things the creative way, right? Sometimes busyness gets in the way. This resonated with some of you in the slowing down class. So being aware of the blocks and the challenges, we can maximize our creative potential, which gets super exciting. Creating those conditions that inspire our creativity. So in order to be in the flow, being free, being unrestricted, feeling safe. And actually, we're at a time, this is why this class is toward the end, we're at a time in this world where we need your creativity. And when I say we, that's all of us speaking to all of us. We need your creativity. So Abby, can you open that video, please?
Today, we are on the cusp of an unprecedented opportunity. Powerful social and technological changes mean that we can realistically commit to the aspiration that everyone be able to live a creative life. But what do I mean by a creative life? It's a life that feels meaningful, fulfilled, where we're free to express ourselves as individuals. We have access to the power and resources to shape our own future. We can make our unique contribution to the world. People hear the word creative and think, oh, that's about art or culture or invention. I don't have that kind of talent. But creativity is in all of us. The artist Ai Weiwei called creativity the power to act. So let's think about the creative life in this way. Everyone having the skills, confidence, opportunity to make their ideas a reality, whether that idea is a performance, a product, a service, a business, even a social movement. So why do I think that we might have reached a moment where this kind of creativity can flourish as never before? Several forces are coming together to make this possible. First of all, there's the growing appetite and demand for creativity. Across the world, a better educated, more mobile, more questioning population is seeking out and discovering new routes to self-expression, collaboration, enterprise. And thanks to the power of the social web, people just about everywhere are creating and connecting in a host of new ways. The internet has the potential to be the most powerful accelerator of creativity in human history. And it's clear we urgently need this creative power. The world is facing big challenges, problems like caring for an aging population, tackling growing inequality, responding to climate change. It will take our combined creativity to find the breakthrough solutions we need. And understand, creativity, it isn't just about the individual. Our lives are only possible because of those around us. And so it's not just people who can be creative, it's organizations, it's places, it's societies. But there's another side to this story, the barriers that stand in the way of achieving the goal of creative lives for all. These include those employers and educators who draw too distinct a line between those they deem creative people and creative tasks and the rest, shutting down opportunities to engage and develop us all to our full potential. And we need to address the way our institutions behave, the way they treat people, and the way our government is run. Leaders have to think differently about how they motivate and mobilise. Lasting social progress, it only comes about when governments work in partnership with communities, drawing on the creative capacities of all citizens, recognising them not as bundles of need, but as huge untapped assets. Instead of seeing social engagement as an optional add-on to government policy, we should see that policy only really works when people themselves have chosen to be change makers. And we need to make sure that assets like finance, intellectual property, networks, that they're not just hoarded by the few, but made available as resources for a truly creative society. Looking back in history, we can see that from Aristotle to the Victorians, still persistent today, writers and thinkers with an ambitious idea of the good life, they've also tended to elitists, assuming that such an ideal is beyond the capabilities of the masses. But all human beings can be the authors of their own lives. We are all born with the muscles for creativity, muscles that grow with the exercise of self-determination. This is what we call the power to create.
Do you know that at Penn State you can create your own major? It's through the Bachelor of Philosophy department. So you don't have to choose something that is already prescribed for you. You can create your own, define your own way forward with the things that get you most excited. So if this is intriguing to you, you can look this up. I've said before, and I'll probably say again next week, that some of you are going to have jobs that don't even exist yet. We need this creativity, right? So how do we get there, right? Some good sleep, some elimination of distractions, decreasing caffeine and alcohol, exercise, diversify your activities and interests, seek out new experiences. And what do you notice about this list? These are all things that make us more healthy in general. So Julia Holtz writes about salugenology. That's the study of what makes us healthy, not pathogenology, which is the study of disease. So how is it that health can be not just the absence of disease, but the way that we thrive in this world? Movement and nature and art and service and belonging, we are wired for these ways of being. So with that, I encourage you to think about, we do not cease from the exploration, right? All you do is start simply asking yourself, is there another way to do this? Science can't fix where we are alone. It's going to take all of us to fix what's going on this planet today. We need to do for the planet, and then everything else will follow out of that. What we need to do is regenerate the human spirit first, the connections that we have. And so with that, I encourage you to find your individuality. I encourage you to sometimes call in healthy. Feel-good days are finite, so spend time at play and at creativity, letting your brain slow down so that some of those good things can happen. When you sell your health for money, you're going to run out of both. That's all there is to it. So with that, I hope that your day is as wonderful as you are. Thank you. Oh yeah, that was a confusing email conversation. I apologize.